Welcome to the NWI.com Political Roundtable for Thursday, July 11th. I'm Robert Blaskowitz, Assistant Managing Editor of The Times. Join with me today, Krista Zavanovic, Assistant Managing Editor of The Times. Times editorial page editor Doug Ross is enjoying a well-deserved vacation.
But still emailing us. And we're telling him, go sit under a tree and mouth breathe, Doug, take a break.
Let's start off talking about something that's kind of just been buzzing around the blogosphere, which was a story that over the weekend that our State House reporter Dan Carden did, looking at the issue of gay marriage and specifically the legal penalties in place for submitting, if a same-sex couple, say, submitted for a marriage, applied for a marriage license, and in effect falsified.
Because the requirement is that it has to be a male and a female.
Right.
So if one of them were to also lie and say, well, I'm really a male getting married to a female, they would be penalized for that.
Right.
They would be jailed. They would be fined.
Right. It's a 1997 law that declares it a Class D felony to submit false information. So yeah, they would get pretty stiff penalties for that. It was picked up, and I think and some people misread the story or didn't read completely, as a new law. It wasn't a new law. It was an existing law, although the law will be, the penalties will be adjusted in 2014.
But not for the gay couple, just
right.
for the public official or the clergy person.
That was the other interesting part of this law that I don't think people realize, and part of the reason we did the story was that the law also penalizes a clergyman, judge, mayor, city clerk, or town clerk treasurer who solemnizes a marriage between two people of the same gender. So it kind of raises some interesting issues in terms of separation of church and state. You're telling clergy that they can, what they can
and you're going to
can't
fine
do.
Clergy and possibly jail them for 180 days.
And this is an area that typically conservatives say, hey, stay out of the church's business. Well, now they're all up in the church's business on this issue.
Well, I think what's telling is that the law did pass in 1997, and I think that's why maybe it was so strict and so harsh, because we're looking at more than 10 years ago. I would like to clarify the entire reason we did do the story was we got to talking in light of the Supreme Court's DOMA decision, and we said, well, we know that gay marriage is illegal in Indiana. Let's really take a look at the statute. And when we did, we were surprised. It was 1997.
Right.
There is an update, but we were surprised at how far it went. So Dan Carden and I decided he should do a story. We call those enterprise stories. It's kind of taking a look at something we already know or think we know and giving it a second look, and that's what we did. We made very clear in the second paragraph, Dan says the 1997 law, but apparently in the blogosphere, people couldn't read beyond the lead and read right over that, and that's how we got embroiled in this online brouhaha that even reached Charles Pierce of Esquire magazine.
Yeah, so it's been interesting. We've gotten a lot of hits on our website, which we enjoy. New people coming and reading us, but I think it was a good story, and it got the issue out there, and I think it's obviously a hot button topic and something that a lot of people care about.
And I don't think many people really knew the extent of the law or what it really said. So we thought it was valuable, and that's what we should do.
And it offers up some context because this is an issue that will be brought up next spring when the state legislature considers whether to
put it up for a vote to be added to our Constitution, our state
to a
Constitution.
constitutional amendment. They would have to pass it, and then it would go before the voters
in November.
Before it would be
correct.
And
so it's still timely, and people ought to have the law and know what it says and understand what they're getting into. Right.
Also in the State House, Dan Carden once again writing today, and it'll be in Friday's edition of the Times on the 2013 fiscal year closeout, a presentation by Governor Pence, State Auditor Tim Berry, on basically the state of the state's finances, the revenues that are being brought in compared with what the state's spending. And it's on that front, in terms of revenue versus spending, it's good news for the state. We're spending less than we're taking in, and the surplus has grown, and it's now up to $2 billion.
$2 billion surplus.
Nearly $2 billion.
Nearly $2 billion, 1.94, and in just 2 years ago, it was 1.2 billion. So it really has jumped. Revenues have gone beyond expectations.
And that's probably from the economy improving,
Right.
and you're getting more people back to work means more income tax being submitted. So the interesting, I think, part of this story is kind of the back and forth politically in terms of what to do with. We've got the surplus. What should be done with it? Governor Pence says state lawmakers should think twice before spending any of it.
Right.
And Democrats, on the other hand, are saying, look, we have some serious needs, services that are being underfunded.
And have been underfunded for at least 5 years, if not more.
Particularly schools. And
infrastructure.
Right. So we should think about smartly spending some of this surplus to address our needs. And it's kind of interesting. Scott Pelath, the House Democratic leader, on talking about this. He's from Michigan City, and interestingly enough, Michigan City is the latest school district to come out and say we need to pursue a referendum to get more
Good
to raise
point.
property taxes, because we're running a deficit. We don't have enough funding to adequately fund our schools. We need to go to the voters and ask for more money. So his own community is an example of probably what he's talking about, which is that there are segments of government that are being underfunded.
Well, and as Senator Talion said in a prior story, the reason for that is because half of the school districts in the state are going to be getting less money in actual dollars in 2015 than they got in 2011. So there is a definite decline in what schools have been getting from the state legislature, or the state budget. The General Assembly says, well, we're giving more than 60% to schools, but it's still not as much as it was. And that was one point that she made. And she and Scott Pelath both made another point, and that was that getting $50 back because of the surplus.
The income tax cut.
Right,
which was,
right.
He equated to a tank of gas for the average.
Right. And he said, you can't just measure what you get from government in terms of the money you get back from the taxes you pay. And Karen Talion, in the prior story, noted that there are a lot of little programs that are important to a lot of pockets of people throughout the state: public television, community arts, the environment, women's issues, women's shelters, tobacco cessation, not to mention the bigger picture, roads, and schools.
Yeah, and infrastructure
so there are two sides
Sure,
to that
infrastructure investments, you could say, you invest in certain infrastructure such as, say, the Klein Avenue Bridge, that could end up in the long term being a revenue generator, because it will bring new commercial development and things like that.
And in the short term, jobs.
Yeah, jobs. Yeah, and those jobs will provide income, and will pay income taxes, which will go right back into the state's coffers. So it's interesting to see kind of where it's going to go. The Pence was even, I think, more toward cutting spending than even the House Republicans.
Yes, he was
in this past legislative
and giving more
session.
of a tax break.
Yeah. One last, before we end it for the week, one last story we wanted to touch on, kind of an interesting story that was in today's edition, and it kind of developed yesterday online. There was a series of car thefts in St. John. Number of people who had their cars unlocked had them broken into and items stolen from them. One of the items was, I think, a gift card for a convenience store. A gas station convenience store, and they happened to find the person using surveillance photo of using the gift card. So they put out. We put it up online. The police distributed it, and we put it up online. Several photos of this suspect, and then it turned out that the suspect's mother, he was an 18-year-old. The suspect's mother saw the picture online and actually turned him into
called police right in the middle of the day, said, that looks like my son. Police came to her house and they arrested him.
Yeah, but it speaks to, in kind of today's era, it speaks to a certain, you have to, although it's an unfortunate incident, you have to admire the mother for probably doing what was very difficult.
We were just having a conversation the other day in the newsroom that some communities like to sweep their problems under the rug and pretend like they don't have any problems with their young people, or that their young people don't act out and don't act like teenagers. And so it's really become, maybe not become. But we as parents tend to be embarrassed and want to stick to the code of silence, and we think we're protecting our kids by not, calling them on their stuff. And I think this mom really was to be admired. I remember years ago talking to a mother who said, I always pray that whatever my children do wrong, they get caught. And that sort of took me by surprise. And now that I have older children, I have to agree. I think it's better for kids to get caught when they're young, maybe find a problem, take care of it. And in the long run, I think this mom is really to be lauded. Teach us all a lesson.
Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have this week. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next week with another Political Roundtable.